Well, welcome everyone. We have a beautiful Monday here in southeastern Ohio. I hope the weather is great where you are. My name is Leslie Schaller, and I'm the Director of Programs at the Appalachian Center for Economic Networks, or ACEnet. ACEnet is hosting this convening of a long series of specialty meat webinars. We'll be sharing some additional information as the webinar proceeds if you want to join us for future workshops and future webinars. But we're the hosts, and we're doing this work in collaboration with Unlimited Futures Inc., Downstream Strategies, and Swift Level Fine Meats. So the other voices you'll hear on the webinar today are Gail Patton from Unlimited Futures, Tootie Jones from Swift Level Farms and Swift Level Fine Meats, and Annie Stroud from Downstream Strategies. If you have any questions throughout the webinar series, we encourage you to use the chat box. Depending on the number of questions, we may pause through Tootie's presentation to be able to field some of the feedback that you might have. We plan to probably end the webinar around the 2 o'clock time frame, but if we have more information to share and there's a whole plethora of questions, we'll continue to go a little bit past time. So thank you again for attending, and we're going to move forward. So our next webinar is on Monday, August 6th, 2018. Most of the Meat Series webinars are scheduled on Mondays at 1 p.m. So the next webinar will focus on entering markets and growing to protocol. Tootie corrected us that we might really call that growing to standards, but this will share some of the toolkits and resources the project team have developed for meat producers. So we encourage you to register ahead of time and share any of our Facebook posts or any of the other social media to encourage more people to attend. We definitely recognize that throughout the region, there's many other folks who have done work in the meat sector, and we want to get all the information we can available to all the communities and food and farm entrepreneurs that we all as partners work with. So, Beefing Up Appalachia. This is a great report, and we're going to turn over to Gail and Annie to say a few things about this work and what's on the horizon.
Great, thanks so much, Leslie. This is Annie Stroud from Downstream Strategies. I'm the Food Systems Coordinator. So Downstream worked with Unlimited Future to put together this report called Beefing Up Appalachia. If you haven't seen it yet, we'll have links up on the screen here at the end. You can also find it on the Unlimited Future website. Basically what we did here, you can go ahead and switch to the next slide.
Annie, you just cut out a little.
Oh, I asked if you would switch it to the next slide, please.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Sorry. Okay. Basically what we did, so we started out looking at an area around Huntington, West Virginia, the tri-state area, which encompasses Ohio, Kentucky, and West Virginia. So on this map, you can see the red circle there was kind of our local impact area. And we wanted to kind of get a read on what the situation was as far as meat products in the region, and specifically looking at value-added meat products as well, which can often offer producers a higher price point, and that we had, anecdotally, we knew people were looking for it. So we wanted to actually kind of ground truth and see what was actually going on. So we actually did, over the course of this study, 4 different studies. We worked with a group called Kitchen Table Consultants, and they helped us with some of the meat profitability side of things. And so our first survey we did just in the local impact area, and we actually ended up getting responses from all over. So we ended up broadening the scope to include the whole state of West Virginia, plus those counties in Ohio, Kentucky, and then we actually even had some folks in Virginia and Maryland respond. So these are just some basic reports. This isn't going to be an in-depth thing. I just wanted to go through some of the highlights of the report. Go ahead, you can go to the next slide. Yeah, so I just wanted to talk through some of our findings from this. We definitely found there was a desire to purchase value-added products. There was a gap in the facilities available for value-added products and, you know, in what producers knew about how they could get to the point where they were selling that kind of product. So some of the things that we thought that would be a good step forward would be to kind of look at some educational programs. This webinar is actually kind of part of that piece where we're just kind of getting producers and processors and potential retailers a little bit more information about what it would mean to produce this type of product. You know, some of these are things that are larger than what we can tackle right now, but there's definitely a need among processors and for producers actually to have trained employees and trained staff. We talked a lot about market development in terms of developing the avenues and sales channels for these new products that we haven't had the opportunity to do yet. There's retail stores that want to carry it, but how do we get the products from one place to the other? Where are those buyers that are going to be able to help sustain the industry? There are some major gaps we identified. There's a huge gap between the amount of pork being produced in the region versus how much is being consumed annually by the folks in the study area that we looked at. So there's definitely an opportunity there, I think, again, closely related to the market development, but oops, something just popped up. Okay, no worries. Closely related to the market development, but there's definitely a gap in consumption on that side. And then also looking at some of the more basic products for cattle, because there's a lot of cow-calf operations in the region. So looking at ground beef or other beef products or other value-added products that could be used, since West Virginia does have a lot of cow-calf production and not as many producers actually finishing product in the area. You can go ahead. So, you know, again, some of the challenges and some of the findings, a lot of these we had heard, and it was good to kind of do the survey, talk to people and figure out what exactly they were dealing with. Both processors, processing plants, and meat producers often face financial struggles. That neither of those industries are particularly profitable, you know, and have pretty low margins. And, you know, one thing that often happens is you'll have producers talking about how expensive the processors are, and processors are struggling themselves. So what are the things that we can do to help both of these small businesses thrive in our region? Again, the access to value-added processing is limited, getting better all the time. I'm sure Leslie would be happy to talk about that on the ACEnet side in a minute or at some point. You know, so there is a lack of these kind of processing facilities. So what are the steps, and who are the folks that are making investments into their existing facilities? What are the opportunities to process value-added products in other locations? Again, we live in pretty rural areas, even around you know, Huntington and Charleston. It's still, you know, those are cities, but the markets aren't super developed. So continued work is needed to help facilitate the distribution. There's some exciting stuff happening around that now, which is, I'm very excited, but it still needs a lot of work. Another kind of general challenge is the seasonality. Kind of traditional animal processing is usually focused around kind of fall through winter, which leads to a really busy high time for processors when they might not be able to fit all the producers in that they need, but then also leads to kind of dead airtime later in the year when they don't have enough work to sustain their staff, which feeds directly into the labor. Oftentimes, if they don't have the work, they can't retain qualified staff. And what we'll learn at some I don't know if Judy's going to talk about it today or not, but how the importance of the meat processing in the process of producing a quality meat product, um, and how you really need to have quality product come out of those processors for the producer to be able to make the money they're trying to on that product. And then again, kind of across the board, access to capital is challenging with meat processing. And for production, the financial investment up front can be fairly significant. So what are the opportunities that we have to make that a little bit easier, or give people the knowledge they need to make kind of sound financial decisions when they're looking at these new product opportunities. So that's a really short and sweet overview of our kind of key findings. Leslie, if you want to go to the next slide, I think the report link is there. Yeah,
Yep.
so you can get the report and our associated appendices here. And Gail, did you have anything else you wanted to add? Kind of just a plug to read the full report. There's a lot more information there, but we wanted to make sure everyone knew about it.
Yes, and I will add, thank you, Annie, that in the appendices we have some examples of businesses that might be profitable to start around meat, especially in terms of marketing and value-added kinds of businesses. And we're happy to talk to anybody who has any ideas or in any stage along the way that they might be developing a business, or maybe they're a producer and they're looking at doing value-added products, or we're here to help. So Unlimited Future and ACEnet can both help people in that situation.
Yeah, thanks for that. I forgot about that. The mini business plans and project concept ideas are both in the appendices.
And I would just add, if you haven't had a chance to look at this report yet, you really want to check it out. There's just so much information available that I think would be useful for folks at all stages, whether you're a livestock farmer, whether you're a market partner and are interested in sourcing local meat, and if you're an existing meat processor in the region. I think we want to strengthen those partnerships and can provide you with a lot of the trend analysis and the demand that we're seeing all across the sort of local meat value chain. So Gail, I'm wondering if you would like to do an introduction maybe to our fine friend, Tootie.
Sure, I'd love to. Tootie is one of the stars of agriculture in West Virginia. She's been honored, and I'm sorry, Tootie, I don't know all of the honors you've received, but many, many honors for the Swift Level Fine Meats, starting with her farm and raising grass-fed beef. And she has now opened last year in 2017 a retail shop in Lewisburg where she sells her meat plus meat of other farmers who have raised their meat according to specific standards. So it's one of the neat things that we want to kind of hopefully replicate, that we can say because it's this brand, we can count on it being grass-fed, whatever it happens to be, whatever the standards happen to be that we might set. So Tootie can explain it much better than I can, so I'll just introduce her right now.
Okay, welcome Tootie. Just let us know when you need your slides advanced.
All right. Well, thank you, Gail and Leslie and Annie. It's been great working with you all, and thanks for the opportunity to share a little bit of my farm story in hopes that that can be of benefit to others that are listening in on the webinar today. It's great to see how food production in West Virginia has taken off, and I think we're on a really strong path. So we'll start right here with what led to the concept. I've been in agriculture my whole life, and I've worked with cattle my whole life in West Virginia and other parts of the globe, and dove into grass-finished beef about 12 years ago on the farm, and a lot of that was based on what I had gleaned from European countries, Great Britain, and some of our ways beef was being produced in South America. But what I was really interested in is how did we used to do it here, right here, and what was Virginia, now West Virginia, to make the great beef that drovers would bring their cattle in here all the way from Baltimore and other regions, graze them, and then herd them back to Baltimore and put them on ships and send this beef, these animals, back to England for processing. And I was really infatuated with that and had a long-standing reputation in history, and it had deep cultural roots, and that was something I wanted to tie back into. As time went on, I learned a lot, starting with having my steers processed, not for sale, and selling it, even though it was stamped not for sale on the packages, and began my relationship with numerous processors along the way, trying to achieve a better product. And Robert Wong, who had the Bridge Road Bistro, was formerly an executive chef with the Greenbrier, was a good friend of mine, and Robert really encouraged me to look at the potential with restaurant sales. And that was a quantum leap for the necessity of quality and consistency in our product. And I really had to hone in and pay sharp attention to how a product was going to get out there. So restaurants actually preceded a lot of the strength in my sales over customer sales, which forced me to pay attention and to become stronger quicker. I also saw a need of value added, not just for my meats, but for other people's products, their pork, their lamb, their poultry, and traveling around the United States could certainly see that this was the trend, and value added was something that we had a bit of a deficit in here. Not really putting it on the producers, but for anybody that was operating at any type of facility or shop that could help create these value-added products for our producers. And the other piece was convenient customer access. Farm markets really limited my ability to grow my business. It was seasonal, and it was a few hours a week, and customers were not driving out to the farm in the volume that we needed to really push our business forward and get those sales that we needed. So we can go on to the next slide, please. So that's what led me to looking at how do I grow this business. And the farm is one corporation, and it owns the cattle. And this was something I really started seeing clearly the more meat I was selling. We have cattle producers and we have meat producers or beef producers, and they're two very different worlds. Many of our cattle in West Virginia ship out as calves for those markets for all the good reasons they need to go there. That's how our farming operations are set up, etc. But as I dove deeper into the meat business, I realized there was very little support. There's a lot of support for cattle, but there's not much support for beef and meat. So there again, I thought sort of engaging into a retail wholesale space would work. I knew selling off the farm wasn't getting me as far ahead as we needed to in that business plan. And the farm does have a business plan. So we developed another business plan for another business, and that's where Swift Level Fine Meats came out of the farm. So it's a separate corporation, and it began with a business plan, and I worked with Kitchen Table Consulting on that, and through help through Natural Capital Investment Fund. And that moved forward, finding the appropriate property, which took me about 3 years. Did find a property to purchase, and that took about another year to get that thing going through, which was also my lenders for that initial purchase of the conservation fund. And the next step was really defining the vendors, our farms. I already established a relationship with many farms, was already selling their products. And that's where I got my concept of expanding the retail and wholesale by virtue of having the farm and using it as an aggregation and distribution location for Monroe Farm Market and also for my existing restaurant, I was able to expand the offering far beyond just our beef. We were now pulling in chicken from several farms, pork from several farms. We couldn't do rabbit yet. Eggs and some produce. Brought in some produce suppliers. So that had helped us establish the knowledge that there is a market. We already have established customers. So how do we work with our vendors first to find out if our vendors are interested and if they want to expand and grow into this market? And also, how do we expand our customer base? And I almost wanted to put vendors and customers on the same line there because they're totally essential. And we have to have a customer to make this whole thing work. So I like to look at things starting with the customer and my market and knowing who my market is so we can grow for that market specifically. That's one piece I see where a lot of people get held up is they create a product and then they go look for their customer in their market and they're holding the whole cat in the bag, and that's a very volatile place to put yourself financially. We developed, bringing in what you see there on the left, a number of vendors, and once again, we'd already established a relationship with them. So I think we can go to our next slide. So working with vendors, and what I call our vendors or any of the farms that supply our shop. There are some products the shop purchases outright. Our meats are all sold on consignment. Why? One, we don't have the capital to afford the upfront capital to purchase those meats. That would take a lot of money. But I'll come back to that in a minute because a year later we're seeing maybe a better way to do this for both the farmer, producer, vendor, and the shop. Creating those standards, it's really essential, one, that we have an honest relationship and understand what my expectations are to uphold my customer expectations and needs, and that I'm working with a farm meat producer that respects that and understands that and is excited about that because it adds value to their product. This means we need to do farm visits, an ongoing conversation, and to know the feeding protocol, the environmental protocols, all the things that we do that create that standard, because these are all questions your customers want to know. They want to know the answer to everything. Quality. So we're on the same par with agreements of how things are done, and that includes animal welfare, all kinds of things. Quality of product, quality of meat. If you don't have a quality product, it just takes up shelf space and ends up costing the shop owner a lot of money. You're basically storing meat for that producer for free. And I'll sort of input here on the shop. I don't impose any fee to my meat vendors. The customer absorbs that. As a meat producer and someone who sells meat, it has killed me to sell our meat at a competitive market price, paying membership fees, stocking fees, and commissions, and delivering. I couldn't do it with my meat. It just was very, very costly. There was too little wiggle room in there, if any, and sometimes lost. So I tried to come up with a methodology that worked for the meat producer. And it's been a real trick, and it's been fun sort of seeing how the customer can or cannot work with that. And we'll get on that in a few more slides. So quality is absolutely essential. And with that, a volume so that we can keep the market flush and supplied with their demand for volume. Reliability is essential. to be working with people that are reliable. They follow through in a timely way. So I have some pretty stringent standards with my larger volume vendors. So we know exactly what date our product is coming in. For instance, this morning we brought in, I don't know, probably 600 pounds of chicken. A lot of that's already earmarked to go out because I've got a lot of it sold for him already. But it's essential that he's reliable so that I'm reliable to my market. And consistency and everything above there. There again, when you open your shop, you're not selling at a farm market out of your cooler anymore. And the customer expectations are very, very different than they are to farm market. The relationship is very different. We've established those, and so far, everybody's doing great. Yes, next slide, Glenn. Thanks. How did we define what we were selling to our demographic? And I'd like to point out that this shop, I've always hoped would be a pilot for West Virginia. I've talked about it for years and really hoped somebody else would fund it and go for it, but it didn't work. And I just thought this could be great. And it has been. But in Lewisburg, we're really fortunate because we have a very enriched demographic and a variety of people, a very great ethnic variety of people because of the osteopathic school. We've got a lot of doctors here. It's the county seat. We have seasonal homeowners from the Greenbrier Resort. So it really flavors us with something that other areas of West Virginia are not quite so fortunate to benefit from. We have that here. In the shop, customer service is absolutely essential. And it's been a little bumpy. I've got some really gifted, skilled people in the culinary world in my shop, but they're definitely not who I need to have up front dealing with customers because it can get a little dramatic and artsy. So understanding and teaching and training everyone the importance of that customer service, because we want our customers to come back through our door. That's good marketing. We want repeat customers. Having skilled, knowledgeable employees is just as essential. We find on our floor, almost every customer wants to know where the farm is, how the animals are raised, how they're killed. Very few people really ask what it tastes like, and that's sort of what they're going to come back and buy more if it works. So we eat all of the meats that we have. We taste them and cook them different ways because people ask us how to cook meats. So we have to explain how to best cook meats, and then they want to know what part of the body or why is this muscle different than that. So I was not prepared for that. I had nice people on the floor, but they did not have that background knowledge either in the culinary world or in the world of anatomy and muscle breakdown and carcass breakdown in these different animals. So that's been a really big challenge for me. Meeting supply and demand. I can pull out 23 ribeyes on one steer, but I might have somebody walk in and say buy 15 for a dinner party. And, that's going to be it for the week. So we've really had to jump through some hoops and really up our processing space, which the shop gave us, because by purchasing that property, we went from operating 17 freezers at any given time to a really large walk-in freezer, which is great, and everything's organized in totes. And I didn't touch on that earlier, but that really streamlined our operation and efficiency greatly. We do have a number of restaurants that we service, and they're great in terms of on our customer list. I can call them ahead now and give them a heads up because my producers, vendors, have contacted me to let me know when they're going to have Cornish hens, for instance, and how many they're going to have. So I'll pitch it to my group of restaurants, and the first person that answers wins. But we do that a lot with our bellies and other cuts and our primal cuts. And most of those restaurants run those as specials, and that goes back to having that consistency and volume. Working with local meats and producers depends on a lot of variables, and that goes back to our processors, of which we work with product through 4 processors right now. Things happen on the processing floor too. They can have to shut down their facility for a variety of reasons at the drop of a hat. If somebody comes in and your product gets bumped on your cut date, there are a lot of hoops to jump through, and it's vitally important and essential to have a very good relationship with your processor so that they understand what you're doing and what your needs are. Because I don't care how great the product is, if you get it to a processor that doesn't cut it right or understand what your needs are, it can mess things up on the front for you. Okay, we can go to the next. Here is, again, is knowing your business. And in West Virginia, or just in Appalachia, it's going to be different for all of us because of where we live. And every town is different, and every town is fueled by a different economic engine. And that's really going to dictate your product line. There again, we're very fortunate here in this valley because I can depend seasonally on a certain customer. And I know that customer will come in and they live in places like Washington or Palm Beach or Chicago, and our meat here is considered a bargain for what they're paying for similar quality in those areas. There are pockets of West Virginia where I would love to see these shops go because we need them, where what our product is in the case will be dictated by what our customers want to see in that case. That's where those relationships with your customer and your vendors and your processor are very important. I personally do not advocate that a slaughter and processor does the whole thing. I am not a great advocate of putting in more slaughter facilities. I think what we need in the state are more shops that can create products and cuts. My shop is a USDA grant of inspection building, which was real important to me to get. And what that means is that we can accept an inspected product and convert it to another product, for instance, into sausages or jerky, smoked hams, bacon, curing with a HACCP plan, and then restamp it with our facility stamp, and then send it back out into the commercial market. And it was a rare find, and that holds a huge value for us in our store. So that's something to think about, where those value-added products you may be thinking about making, where are they going to go, and what is your market for them? A big learning curve also on the retail side and wholesale are margins. And I've eradicated the word markup from my vocabulary, but a margin plays a huge role in the success of your business and understanding the cost of a product and the margin necessary for the success of your retail store or wholesale market. Whether you're doing this in a front case in a slaughter and processing facility, or you're setting up a little grocery store, whatever. And if any of us were to go out and train this to each other as we build our businesses, which I hope we're all going to do together and strengthen this in West Virginia, that's where we all need a lot of help, is understanding. Another thing that we all need is cash flow, and to have a line of credit to back you up so that you don't run out of cash, because the majority of small businesses fail because there's lack of cash flow for unforeseen expenditures. The other piece that we have realized, because actually starting out of the gate, my margins weren't set at the appropriate place. So it has come back to bite us in a good way, because it woke me up and I realized where the margin had to be set. But with that, to continually increase your sales percentage, knowing that you're going to lose some customers. So it's not just as easy as unlocking the door and walking in that day and checking your freezers and standing at the cash register. It requires a lot of hustle and a lot of communication and a desire to really reach out there and keep your market base strong and steady. And that might not be what everybody wants to do, but if you're going into developing a shop, as we were, those are the people that you want as your allies, that are going to be smart and savvy for you in that direction and help you build your business. Tracking your sales and customers is very important, and we do that through our point of sale system, and that is like my best friend in the shop. And it's also become a best friend for a lot of our producers, because they'll bring in their product with inventory, but we download all that inventory into our system. So at any given time, we know what the inventory is, exactly what's been sold that day, week, month, or in the past year, right down to the pounds of, leg thigh quarters or New York strips or, bellies. So there's some really good systems out there, and I'm not a technical person, which Gail and Leslie and Annie can attest to, but it's essential. It's absolutely essential. And by virtue of that, you can track your customer base. So then through social media and whatnot, emails, you can send information out to your customers on specials and things of that sort. Okay, Leslie. Well, right there is a photo of 1 year later. So which has been a big goal. I've been hounding my neighbor, John Johnson, for years to teach me to cure and smoke. And I started dabbling with it and then brought some other people in. And we are smoking a lot of pork bellies and curing and smoking and selling. That is like a big demand product, and it is really fun to do. We're also making pastrami now. We're custom cutting for people. I mean, it's just all these things I had no idea we were going to do. And that was all through our customers asking, can you do this? Can you do that? And I never say no to much of anything. I say no to frozen fish, which I had no idea we were going to sell fish, and everybody wanted fresh fish. It was like, okay, let me see what we can do. So that was a customer need, a customer demand. We bring in fish every Friday, fresh, and it's usually all gone by 2 o'clock on Saturday, which is just what you want. It's fresh and it's gone. We do special orders, but we bring in anything right now from soft shells, scallops, halibut, salmon, cod, tuna. So they sort of dictate what they want, and that's what we bring in for people, and it goes out. That was a customer need. I had no idea. That has created a need for equipment expansion. I've got a really big smokehouse coming in, which we're excited about because our smoking demand has totally exceeded the capacity of the smoker that I have. And that also is compliant with USDA and our HACCP plan. And that's a great thing. Because of that ability to expand with equipment and the needs of our customer base for our cured and smoked bacons alone, bellies, we are now we're working with 6 pork producers and have expanded up into the Valley in Virginia. Our marketing targets, constantly paying attention to that. It's like being a dealer a little bit, but you've just really got to pay attention, we all do, to our markets, because if one goes thin or fails a little bit, you've got to pick it up somewhere else. As a shop owner, I have a responsibility and a commitment to all of our meat producers. They're really special people to me, and I don't want to let them down. For those that want to grow an expansion, I need to grow their market base because that's my job, and I broker for them, and I take it really seriously because I want to see them grow and I want to see them succeed. And again, the fish and the bellies and the pastrami, all of that is product expansion. It's value added. We're all learning. Thank goodness we've got the space and capacity to do it. This brought about a need to revise our original business plan and budget because it was based on actuals, not projections. And that is such a healthy thing to have in place. And I have one for the farm, for our beef operation, and our cattle operation, and one separate for the corporation that owns the shop. And we're doing a 6-month check-in on those, but we know monthly if, and I say we because I have people helping me, if we're on target or not, or how far we're off, so we can fix the wreck before we get there. And that's a very important piece of running a successful business. It gives you control of what you are doing. When you can see and assess and make informed decisions that help you stay on a really good, healthy track to growth. The other piece that we brought in are working with the community more closely. We have been, from the get-go, aggregation and distribution for Monroe Farm Market, Greenbrier Valley Grown, and have now expanded to working with the Waste Not, Want Not program with the Greenbrier County Health Alliance and the Gleaning Project. So we've expanded our space and our gifting to our community of people that need healthy food that can't get it. So we're an aggregation now in a small market at a donation price to build the funds, and a distribution to several food pantries that feeds the senior centers and Meals on Wheels and 2 homeless shelters. And that's really a good thing to do. And that's also helped our business because people see that and appreciate it, and it takes off that competitive edge they see with retailing, and you fit in better as a community participant. Okay, Leslie. And the reality is how it impacts your life. And of course, my business is not this huge thing. It's wonderful and it's growing, but it definitely has impact because once a person opens a shop, they're in the shop. It's sort of like being in your office. I was very spontaneous and always living outside on the farm and could adjust my life around a lot of things. You can't do that when you unlock a door and you have to be in there till 6:30 at night. So it does have impacts on family relationships, ability to tend to agriculture and our farm life the way I was certainly accustomed to. Personal time definitely bites into that, and the responsibilities of owning and managing a shop and finances. And those all are good outcomes because I work at them, and they're all things that are really important to me. And families first because families first. But it requires a lot of creativity and stamina. I'm delighted that we've opened the shop and are doing what we're doing. My son Everett works very closely with me in there. My daughter Reese is very involved, and we've got a few other people in the community working with us. And those collaborative efforts within our community are all outreach relationships, and they're just like family too. So if you all have any questions, I am here today, but I'm available to you at any time. And our farm site's there, our shop site's there, and jump on Facebook and check the shop out. We'd love to have you visit our Facebook site. Thank you.
So So Tootie, a couple questions. One is, can you talk a little bit about maybe how you've used social media or how your use of social media has changed? I mean, Swift Level Farm had a recognizable brand in West Virginia, but then to make this leap and to start the retail location, what kind of marketing plan or what kind of social media tools have you used to really connect with customers?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up about the brand. From 1994, we've had our logo, and I put that on everything all the way throughout. Branding and brand recognition is really important. Whether you have a good product or bad product, they're going to remember it with that logo on there. And we did leap from the farm into the shop, and it's been real important to keep both sites going. Facebook was our first real go-to. I mean, our websites, obviously, because we drive people to our website so they can get a little deeper information on how we operate, both on the farm and at the shop. Facebook is really big. For instance, we'll post all of our specials. We post on Facebook once, maybe 3 times a day. Which requires paying attention to because people want you to respond. So that's just another little detail to put in there. But it's important that somebody's assigned that has good customer service in their brain to respond and good grammar. But so Facebook is big. Instagram, our customers come in and they take pictures and they want to Instagram it immediately. There's probably more we could be doing, but I rely heavily on Everett to do that. But I would say Facebook is our biggest social media piece. We do some advertising to support our local papers and a few local magazines. It's sort of it's a sharing thing. It's a community piece. We all invest in each other. But that's sort of my limit for outside advertising.
And do you have a good way of tracking how you're utilizing both print and social media? You know, are you getting a sense that, oh, if I do this post on a Friday afternoon, I see that product sold out by Saturday afternoon? You know, are there any, I guess, tracking systems you've experimented with in terms of either promoting certain products or promoting particular vendors that you work with?
Yeah, we definitely see that. And we ask everybody because we're not sort of like a checkout at Kroger's. We have conversations with everyone who come in there. So we know everybody pretty much. You recognize them and ask them. But if it's a new customer, you know, I don't think I've seen you here before. You know, where are you from? How did you find out about us? We make notes, and I have everybody sort of jot that down. And we do track our sales when we run a special. Some weeks we get a great response, other weeks we don't. And I ask people, was that just not something that interested you or what? So that we can gauge what we have that they want to see go on special.
Great. So if you had to make a slide for 1 year in the future, what are some of your priorities now going into the rest of 2018 and the early part of 2019?
Some skilled, knowledgeable people to step into my shoes a bit so that I can sort of roll my sleeves up and continue to expand where we are. It's been very valuable because you can't run a business that you don't know how to run. You've got to understand what your business is so that you can direct it and operate it. That's essential. But I'm training people, so we're in the process of that right now. We're really developing our culinary arm because we've got a demand for salsas and all kinds of things to go with our meat products, and we're jumping on that. Equipment expansion, and with that, you know, I've got to, my bottom line is to increase sales a minimum of 12% this year. So I set that goal, and to keep those margins maintained. Going into year 2, we're just looking to better year 1. In year 1, totally did a good job. I'd like to expand my producer group, and we've been asked to expand to another site. So that's on the forefront. It's not in black and white, but it's been a very nice gesture that's well supported for us to develop in another location. So
Wow.
I think that'll be enough for the next 12 months.
That sounds like enough for the next 24 to 36 months. So I'm wondering, Gail or Madeline or Annie, do you have any additional questions for Tootie?
Tootie, I had one question. What point of sale system are you actually using now? Did you try multiples, or are you happy with the one that you work with?
I went with ShopKeep, and that's because, and we're working with a different credit card company now that is going to charge us. We're just starting. They'll charge half. 95% of our customers use plastic, and that adds up really fast. That wasn't budgeted to that extent through our first year projection. We're really happy with ShopKeep, but it does one or the other. It does pieces or pounds. You can't have both with one product, which makes our inventory a little more complicated. But since it's meat, it's all in pounds, and everybody brings it in pounds anyway, so it works. We were advised. I love working with them. Their customer service is fabulous. If you've got an issue, and I have issues all the time because our internet goes down, they're there. They're great customer service. So they're really good at hand holding.
Great. Cool. Thanks.
And Gail, do you have anything to add?
I'm muted. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Okay, sorry, I had muted myself. Tootie, if you could start over today, what would you do differently?
I'll probably be, 20 years younger.
We'd all do that.
I maybe not be open 6 days a week, just simply a year into it. Over a year. We started in there way before we opened up because we were doing business when we moved in there. So it's not like we just started doing business. But it's the time and to understand the seasonality. But we had to run a year to get it. There are retail items that we've brought in there that are just not necessary. People aren't going to buy kitchen stuff in there, but I had to figure that out. I think there are all those things. What I knew, really nothing, to tell you the truth. I've had a really great time doing it, and we're working with wonderful people. We've got great cheese from, the people up there in Paw Paw, and we've just expanded with these syrups and the salts and things, which are a real honor to have because they're great West Virginia products. I think just personal time for me, to honestly answer that. And working with the Savory Institute really helped me a lot. And I continue to reach back and do a few small projects with them. And I think just to remember to work holistically and what works best for your lifestyle. And I just didn't realize how much I was going to have to be at the shop. But it's all been good because that's why it's growing and not failing. You just have to not get sick, and you got to roll your sleeves up. Motor on, right?
Cool. I love it.
Good advice for all days. Well, we're getting a little bit close to time. And Annie, there was a question about downstream strategies. People were interested in knowing more about downstream and maybe the role that you've played in this project.
Yeah, sure, of course. So Downstream Strategies is a consulting firm. We have offices here in Morgantown, West Virginia, and one in Alderson, West Virginia. And we do a whole bunch of different things. But one of our kind of program areas is we work in local food and community development work, and that's my role through Downstream. So we do a lot of different stuff from research and data collection, map making, through actual project implementation. And so for the report that we did here with Unlimited Future, we actually worked with Galen Kitchen Table Consultants to help manage the project. We were helped out with some of the survey collection stuff. And then in this case, we then compiled and put together the report. We've also got some graphic design folks on staff. But yeah, depending on the needs of whoever we're working with, we've done all of the data collection. Sometimes we'll work with clients to have, their staff, or sometimes they'll have like AmeriCorps Vistas or things like that that can help do some of that work. We do a lot of policy work as well. We've done some of that, food system assessments, business planning, feasibility studies, both for projects and for kind of specific business entities and things like that. And we do have a website. I realized I didn't put it up there, but it's downstreamstrategies.com. Heads up, we're getting a website update sometime soon, but for now, I think the link should work fine. You can find all of our recent public reports are up on our website as well.
Great. So you can connect with many of the partners to be able to get more resources and to certainly getting the Beefing Up Appalachia report. We will also make available the slides from this PowerPoint presentation. So if you want them sent as a PDF, please reach out to us. Probably the best contact would be Leslie S. at acenetworks.org. But you could probably go to any of our Facebook pages or connect with any of us, and we can make sure that that's available to you. Before we end the webinar today, we have some upcoming events that we'd like to share with you. And I'm wondering, Gail, if you're unmuted, if you could talk a little bit about our face-to-face gathering coming up this Wednesday in Huntington, July 11th. It's a meetup.
Sure, I'd love to. We're going to get together so that we can all share ideas and information with each other. We'll have Tootie will be there, and Leslie, and Annie, are you planning to be there? I forget.
Yep, I'll be there.
Okay, cool. All right. We'll have some people from the Eastern Panhandle. We'll have some people from the center of the state. So people from all over the state will be there to talk about meat and what's going on, and some ideas and ways that we might work together to grow the meat industry. Plus, we'll have information about ACEnet's new value-added meat processing facility in Nelsonville, Ohio. We'll have information about lean meat operations and ways that you can use lean manufacturing techniques like the Toyota manufacturing program to make your farm and or processing or value-added product processes more efficient. And then we're going to have Quentin Jones from the West Virginia Department of Agriculture and a bunch of different people there to talk about regulations and what's required. It'll be quite an in-depth look at getting started if you wanted to, or growing in the meat industry.
And this gathering is open to folks all across Central Appalachia. We assume that a lot of the attendees will be from West Virginia, but we're hoping that some friends from Eastern Kentucky and Southeastern Ohio might want to join us as well. If you can't make the event, we'll probably have additional information and PowerPoint presentations that we can also share with folks in the future.
Yeah, we definitely have people from Kentucky and Ohio already signed up, so that we certainly want to welcome everyone.
Great, and it's not too late to register at this point. We're happy that RCBI is our host for the event. And this really, in many ways, has been a collaborative project across states. UFI has secured rural business development grant funding through their programs. We've also at ACEnet been able to utilize Ohio Rural Development Business Grant funding as well. And then the Appalachian Regional Commission, to a large extent, has helped us throughout Central Appalachia with this sector work also. So we appreciate all our funders. And if you see them, thank them for their support, because we wouldn't be able to do this work without their investment.
Right. And one other thing, there is free lunch.
Great. And I'm sure it will be a generous helping of lots of great local and regional food. Okay, so before we wrap up, our final slide just describes some of the upcoming MEET webinars. Again, follow us all on social media. One thing you might want to notice, though, that our September 10th webinar, we had to move to an earlier time. So instead of 1 p.m., that webinar will be hosted at 11 a.m. So please stay tuned to all our websites. You'll see the register links coming soon for both the September and the October webinars. So thank you for joining us. And I'm wondering if there's any final words. We deeply appreciate Tootie joining us and doing a presentation. So we all need to give her a round of applause and thank her for all the hard work that she does. She's an incredible asset for West Virginia, but she's really a superstar all across Central Appalachia. So Tootie, thanks for your time.
Thank you all very much. We can all do it. We just need to work together and help each other out. And you all are fabulous. You've helped so many people. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Well, I think we're wrapping up. Any other closing comments from any of the other partners, Annie or Gail?
No, just hope we see everybody on Wednesday.
Okay, we look forward to it. Thanks a bunch.
Thank
We're
you.
ending the webinar now.